part.
I'm doing my part.
And I'm doing my part too. Now, I was on the fence about doing a Starship Troopers video because I was doing my brisk research, and it seemed like there's a bunch of other YouTube channels already covering the whole messaging, the plot, the lore of Starship Troopers to death. That being said, each mouth-breathing YouTuber is entitled to his or her own opinion.
Guilty. Sentence, death.
And I am, of course, a mouth-breathing YouTuber. So I have my own take, and here at the channel, I do what I like, because, well, it's my channel. Many other videos I've seen on YouTube, of course, cover how Starship Troopers is supposed to be a satire on fascism and how the government's a heavily militarized state that depends on warfare to keep it going. From the obvious fashion statements from the Shoots Waffle type looking fellas and its propaganda, it should be pretty obvious that that satire is screaming in your face about what it is.
The great people of the Federation will not be cowed in submission by a creature that we can scrape from the heels of our boots.
Robert Heinlein's book and Paul Verhoeven's movie differ drastically in tone and messaging. The general outline of the book is borrowed, and the name is shared. But this is one of those instances where the book and the movie are two different roller coaster rides. I'm taking this helmet off. I can hear like all my thoughts. Are you psychic? Would you like to know more? God. Oh! I know that for fans of a book, when it is adapted poorly into a movie, they get mad, understandably so. But weirdly, in recent years, I myself personally have been strangely enjoying when a TV show or a movie is adapted differently than the book. I've been reading the Sharp series by Bernard Cornwell, and the book is much different than what is portrayed in the show. Often there's a whole different plot line, many different characters, and the battles in the book are much more grand and epic than what is shown in the TV show style movies. And to be fair, it all mainly comes down to budget. And budget played a direct correlation into how the troopers in Starship Troopers would be portrayed in Paul Verhoeven's movie. Things that were vital to the book, such as the Marauder suits, were left on the cutting room floor, mainly due to the budget it would take to properly portray them. And one thing to also consider is the technology of the time. The CGI probably wouldn't have been up to snuff in the 96 to 97 years. I mean, it's probably still doable, but for what is needed to be done to portray what the Marauder suits were, and I just don't think they had the budget to pull it off, despite the budget being $100 to $110 million. Of course, the Marauder suits being cut being one of the biggest changes, because the whole thing is that the mobile infantry is mobile because of the Marauder suits, so what are you gonna do? Another thing cut was the offensive capability of the arachnids, as well as a whole different alien species known as the Skinnies, a humanoid-style alien that is like, you know, your stereotypical gray-looking alien, I want to say. Paul Verhoeven even thought the book was boring. I believe he got like 2 chapters in and just thought like, this book is pretty boring, I don't want to keep reading it. Which is kind of some big Johnny Rico jock Chad energy. Now, to some degree, I agree with Paul Verhoeven's assessment that the book was kind of boring, mainly in the aspect of the action portrayed. Unlike some of the other videos, I have read the source material. I got it here. You're welcome. I did my due diligence this time. Despite my agreeing with him about the action being lame, that's not to say that I don't think the book still has merit. To me, the book always felt like it read as a leadership manual. For those that aspire to get paid to carry a gun, the book felt like a leadership manual in the way that you got to watch Johnny Rico become a warrior and then become a leader of warriors. That being said, Heinlein did face some criticism because he injected a lot of his own personal beliefs about political society and philosophy into the book. At the time, in 1959 when it was written, he believed that the next generation, being baby boomers, were getting soft, and that the great threat of communism was on the horizon and was going to overwhelm them, and that the government needed tougher men, and that military service was the ultimate indication of being a tough man. I will say it's a classic trope in history, the prior generation always thinking the next generation is going to be soft. That's been around forever. The action in the book is very technical and lacks the dramatic flair. The movie lacks none of that, for it is all dramatic flair. It's already playing with abstract thoughts about warfare. Even 66 years later, we can still maybe have some trouble grasping, truly imagining what that warfare would look like, even though we have more contemporary examples of something that it may be close to. Troops in those Marauder suits can bounce and cover great swaths of distance, and they're responsible for a massive amount of square mileage. I want to say in the book, Johnny Rico in one of the fights is responsible for like 680, 700 square miles of territory with just his platoon, which is a massive amount of space for just a platoon of guys to control. But of course, the Marauder suit with its advanced technology allows them to cover such great swaths of land. Swaths. How elegant. The action in the book doesn't read like a dramatic battle sequence. Instead, it's more like a report and telling of events. Like after the battle, Johnny went and had to do like his paperwork on what happened and what he did with his platoon during the battle. On this date and time, as part of Operation Bug Hunt, Alpha Platoon secured Hot Dog 7 sector. Bugs came out, Alpha Platoon then killed Bugs. It's not that flashy. The mobile infantry, even though they're centuries into the future, still fight with quasi 19th, 20th, 21st century tactics. They're using mass wave tactics, getting dropped off in ships that were in close order formation. They have, still shell ejecting, full auto rifles. It's all very familiar. It's all stuff that we, in our timeline, are very comfy with. It is cheaper to portray that sort of action than having to come up with the CGI of Marauder suits, so it kind of makes sense. Heinlein's also given credit for inspiring a mass of other scientific genres. Off the top of my head, I think of like Halo and Warhammer. Halo with Mjolnir armor, or the ODST drop pods, and Warhammer with, the Tyranids and the Space Marine armor, making them superhuman elites. They're already superhuman. I, like many of you, watched this movie at a young age and thought it was awesome. It was the pinnacle of military-industrial complex propaganda, and that propaganda worked. Triple the defense budget.
It begins in California.
You're telling me I get paid to work out, shoot guns, shower with beautiful women? Brother, I would like to know more. And this is where the concept of Starship Troopers gets very interesting to play with. So it's obviously supposed to represent a form of fascist society, with a form of government that is a stratocracy, a government run by the military. It also seems to value meritocracy as well. For being a fascist government, they don't seem to discriminate against race, color, religion, or creed. They're only advancing on competency alone. Have you guys ever seen someone filling up grocery bags with gasoline at the gas station? What are they doing? Those people's vote counts the same as yours. Viewer watching this who is the protagonist of his own story and not just another NPC, a free-thinking man. Those people, you clearly think there are these idiots, they're going around, their vote literally counts the same as yours. So it's fun to think of a government form of society where if you are willing to put your body in harm's way, then you get the right to vote. Doesn't matter how smart you are in this case but if you do your federal service, you have earned the right to vote.
Service guarantees citizenship.
Clearly on the channel, there's a constant theme of us talking about humanity's survival and galactic expansion, so of course Starship Troopers fits this theme rather well. For whatever reason, Star Trek Into Darkness comes into my mind when I think about this topic. The Star Trek society is one of more reason and peace, with a Starfleet that is orientated around the exploration of space, not warfare. Meanwhile, in that universe, there are the Klingons, which are a much more militarized society. And a character known as Admiral Marcus realizes this and awakens an ancient warrior to help militarize Starfleet. Now, despite Admiral Marcus's false flags and fear-mongering, he maybe was onto something with the threat of the Klingons, and militarizing Starfleet more would give them a better edge for taking on a Klingon threat. Starship Troopers, of course, being the exact opposite train of thought to Star Trek, where society revolves around being hyper-militarized. There are some folks that I find insufferable when it comes to movie enjoyers. These people typically are too smart for their own good, often overanalyzing and going full Kino. These types of folks would look at the movie Starship Troopers and apply 10 different levels of subtext and meaning, and it all becomes very tiresome. I can look at that fictional universe, imagine myself in the mobile infantry having a good time, killing bugs, showering with the ladies, making love at the patrol base. In this scenario, I'm not married, so in a weird 1984 Orwellian way, when you give into the propaganda of the movie, you have way more fun. The movie is also insanely quotable. I can't think of a movie off the top of my head that is as quotable as Starship Troopers. Come on, you apes! You wanna watch this video forever?
You want to live forever?
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
Service guarantees citizenship.
Service guarantees citizenship.
Would you like to know more? This is for you new people. I only have 2 rules. Everybody fights, nobody quits. If you quit, I'll kill you myself.
This is for you new people. I only have 1 rule. Everyone fights, no one quits. You don't do your job, I'll shoot you.
I probably butchered some quotes, but you get the idea. Like, I think not only myself, but a lot of you out there resonate with the character Johnny Rico. Now, chances are none of us are as handsome as Casper Van Dien, but resonate nonetheless with his arc and trajectory. Funny thing is that he was actually selected because he looked like an Aryan Superman that was straight out of World War II Nazi propaganda. How handsome does a fella have to be? And like Johnny Rico, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself after I graduated high school. What career was I going to pursue? Did I have a desire of military service? Where would I end up? What did my parents expect of me? This probably sounds very familiar to a lot of you young men out there, or just men in general when you were young. I did know that I wanted to serve in some way, and I ended up in law enforcement. I, of course, didn't join for a girl. As I went through that journey of law enforcement, I came in as a new guy, made mistakes, but eventually you find your groove and you work well with the guys on your team. I also got my butt kicked a lot in the process of becoming a law enforcement officer. I went into that world naive, and I left a little bit wiser, a little bit more aware of what goes on in society, how society works, and in some ways it made me a better man. I think that journey is common for many young men that are eager to prove themselves, and oftentimes institutions that revolve around violence is one of the avenues to do so. In the book, Heinlein insinuates that the military is the ultimate proving grounds for citizenship and masculinity. I think in the book and in the movie, the audience gets to see Johnny Rico grow and evolve, and we're along that journey with him. We see him go from an aimless, athletically gifted jock to becoming a soldier in the mobile infantry, then he becomes a squad leader, then eventually he becomes a lieutenant, and we're along that journey for the entire process. We get to see Johnny's mistakes, we get to see where he succeeds, and of course he ultimately finds his home in the Roughnecks. He finds a place where he belongs. I think civic service should not be the measure of a man's morality or his masculinity. One interesting train of thought I've seen pop up on the web is the idea that the bugs are innocent. They're just defending their homeworld from the human invaders, as one naturally would do.
Frankly, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
And another theory was that the Federation conducted a false flag attack on Buenos Aires with a meteorite. Personally, I wouldn't put it past the Federation if they want to do a false flag, but I think they may have already had their chance with the Mormon colony that set up shop in the bug system, but they all got slaughtered. They maybe could have taken that incident and spun up the war machine, but I also could see them wanting a much more ravenous population from an attack to Earth from the bugs. I could see that. For instance, some real-life examples that are kind of sobering. On November 4th, 2019, a group of gunmen attacked a convoy of 3 cars carrying people from the La Mori community in Mexico. The attack killed 9 people, including 3 women and 6 children. The victims were residents of La Mora, a community of American-Mexican independent Mormons. A drug cartel is thought to be responsible for the attack. The United States didn't invade Mexico over this incident. Maybe there was some shadow government stuff going on, but the general population heard about it and pretty much went, oh, and moved on. Example number 2, 9/11. We invaded 2 countries and had a 20-year-long conflict after the events of 9/11. And of course, there are the conspiracy theories surrounding 9/11 that almost fit perfectly into like the Starship Trooper conspiracy theories with the false flags, because Tower 7 do be going crazy. Would you like to know more? After 9/11, the American spirit for payback was dialed up to 11 on the scale of 1 to 10 by a good margin of years. You think the people at the government saw Starship Troopers with Buenos Aires getting attacked by the bugs, and they're like, write that down. Write that down. We gotta invade Iraq. Write that down.
To disarm Iraq.
There's also a lot of math that goes into the bug meteorite for it to perfectly hit Buenos Aires from across the galaxy, but I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm gonna let the propaganda win on this one. The bug is bad. Now, moving past those sobering examples with the tragic loss of human life on many different fronts, I wanna get to what I think about the bugs. Now, I'm approaching this from surface level. I know that the bug can represent the other in this fascist society, like it has before, with people being considered others, subhuman. I understand that, but I'm approaching it from surface level, about them actually being giant space bugs, just a colony of insect creatures that have managed to survive. And bugs are gnarly creatures. They're disgusting. They're gross. When I watch Animal Planet and they do the zoom in thing to show the bugs living and doing their thing, it is absolutely horrifying. Thank God those things are as small as they are, because if they were any bigger, it probably would have meant the end of humans as we know, or the rest of the world as we know it. Like, for instance, if they found an ant colony of bugs the size of dogs in the Amazon, I would be jonesing for them to just napalm that thing off the face of the earth and exterminate all those bugs. Are you kidding me? The size of dogs? Nobody wants a bug horde like that on their planet. I don't want men, women, and children risking being chopped up by a large ants' mandibles. That's horrific. Have you seen how bugs just eat normal mammals when they get a chance? So when it comes to Starship Troopers, there's a lot of incentive to go wipe out the bug. Even when covering the Avatar movies, I would feel much more moral dilemma when it comes to fighting the Na'vi. They are humanoid, they have culture, they have religion, and they can be reasoned with. They just so happen to be in the way of humanity getting their natural resources, which they're not even using technically. There will be no need to totally wipe them out. On Pandora, we are the invaders, and them fighting back is a natural response. We would do that if aliens showed up to our own planet. But in this instance, we are the aliens showing up to their planet, the more advanced species. Even on Pandora, the battles are considered relatively civil as far as warfare goes. None of this would apply to the realm of Starship Troopers when fighting the bugs. The bugs will just tear you to shreds and eat you. There is no civility from the bugs, because
The bugs have no civilization.
destroying the bug would be like doing the rest of the universe a massive favor. The bugs can colonize other planets by shooting their larvae out into space, to which they'll eventually land on a planet. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants a giant arachnid showing up at your doorstep eating your family. Another good example I like to think about is with the Na'vi. In theory, you could take each of us, say you could take a human soldier and a Na'vi warrior, no weapons, put them into a room together. There's a lot of potential that they don't just kill each other off the rip. Maybe they can have a conversation. Maybe there's a level of civility. You can't really do that with a giant arachnid bug. It only knows survival of its species, and it has no other thoughts. It does what the government tells it to do. Aww. A lot of my distaste from the movie is how the Federation went about fighting the bugs. Clondathi was some textbook levels of bad tactics and strategy given the current enemy, and we suffered a massive amount of human life. To make the colonizing of these bug planets, human life must be preserved at all costs while maximizing the utmost devastation to the bugs and their colonies. I mean, if the humans had the Marauder suits from the books and they were fighting the arachnids from the movies, I think it would be an absolute slam dunk of just wrecking house. They drop them in, they do some massive killing of aliens, put a few nukes down a bug hole, you got a lot of dead bugs, or of course just use chemical warfare on the bugs. It's probably one of the easiest options. That being said, it makes for a far less interesting movie. You and your boys all getting dropped off on a planet with assault rifles, laying into bugs sounds pretty sick.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Some of you guys have some good points from the Tomorrow War. Like, what about the AA-12? I think some sort of shotgun-like small arm would probably come in very useful, or a lot of explosive rounds. Like, the assault rifles they had made sense if you're fighting other humanoid threats, given that type of warfare, but it clearly showed that the underbarrel shotgun was wrecking house on the aliens. They just use something like that. Anyway, of course, chemical warfare. I already use it on bugs already. When there's an ant colony around my house, the exterminator shows up and lays waste to their colony. Starship Troopers should literally just be exterminators in space going to the bug planet. I find this movie a masterpiece. The movie is showing society what to watch out for, making war sexy, overbearing governments, relentless propaganda. And a funny twist, the movie itself is propaganda what to watch out for. Even knowing that, I still feel drawn to an unironic version of what the movie portrays. It's a powerful realization in many ways as to what's going on in our own society. At some point, you have fallen victim to propaganda, and that propaganda worked. Of course, you are a free-thinking individual, not just some NPC, and yet the propaganda still got its claws into you. It's crazy how well that stuff can work.